If you had 90 minutes to learn Canva, then what are the things you'd want to learn to become the most efficient Canva user possible? What are the things you'd want to learn to avoid headaches and wasted time? Well, that's what I'm going to provide for you in this video. I've been teaching Canva for years to students all over the world, and the information I'm going to provide in the next 90 minutes represents the Canva basics, the Canva fundamentals, the smart Canva workflow tips that consistently save users time. I'll cover tips on the Canva user interface, tips on working with different types of content, tips on repositioning and arranging content, and I'll cover some vital things like why are folders and templating such a crucial part of becoming an efficient Canva user. And then to take this farther and provide you with even more value, I've created a Canva Zero to Hero challenge which pairs with this video. It's going to help you take everything you learned in this video, put it into practice, test it in a real Canva document, make sure you have all these time-saving fundamentals and workflow tips locked in so you stop wasting time in Canva. Now this challenge is absolutely free to my email subscribers, so it's going to cost you nothing to take part. I'll put a sign up link in the video description down below. But I do understand that a 90-minute video like this, that is a bit of a time commitment. But what you can do is you can bookmark it, you can come back to it. I also have timestamp links in the description below. So if you see a section where you really think I need to brush up on this section, you can jump to different sections, watch different sections. But here's my promise to you. Anytime that you invest in learning these basics by watching this video, by taking these challenge and locking in those fundamentals, that is time you're going to make back while working in Canva in terms of time saved, because you are going to become a more efficient Canva user if you really lock in these fundamentals. So watch this video, take the challenge below, and I guarantee it is going to be a smart investment of your time. So let's start for the very basics for anyone that might be totally new to Canva. If you do not have an account yet, what you would do is come to canva.com, and then once you're there, you can follow this sign up for free link. Now, when you sign up for Canva, there is the Canva free plan. There is also a pro plan and a teams plan. I'm not going to go through all the details here, but basically the free plan, you get a lot of cool stuff, but with the pro plan, you get some more advanced tools. You get a background remover for photos, for video. You get a magic resize tool that lets you resize your designs very easily. You get some other AI tools, and you just get more of all the graphic choices. In other words, you have more assets you can choose from. You have more templates. You still get a lot with Canva free, but you definitely get more with Pro. And I think generally, if you start using Canva a lot, the Pro plan is worth it, but you can also start with a free trial. Then there also is a Canva for Teams plan, and with the Teams plan, it just gives you more tools that make collaboration and sharing easier when you're working on projects. So for work teams that are working together and using Canva together, then maybe you want to think of Canva for Teams. So when you do Canva for Teams, there is a price per team member. So I'm not going to go into any more detail on those, but if you want to get more details, you can search in Canva on their website. They have lots of information about all the differences between these choices, okay? So then when you're ready to go and you're ready to hit the sign up button, you can sign up through Google, through your Facebook account, continue with email. It's not very hard. So any of these things, you just need to email, you can set up a password, or you can just go through your Google account or through your Facebook account. Any of those is going to work fine. I'll leave that choice for you. But then once you do that, then you're going to go up and sign up. And then when you come to canva.com, you'll log in and you'll be good to go. So then once you do have your account and you're logged in, you're going to come to this home screen. Now yours might not be exactly like mine, but it's going to be pretty similar. Canva does make updates periodically, so you might see some slight changes, but it's going to be pretty similar to this. So let's just briefly go over this. This is basically your launch pad for starting new designs. So you can click on these buttons up here just to get in under different categories. So social media will take you to a whole bunch of social media templates. Print products will take you to a whole bunch of print products. If you're on this For You tab, it's going to show you some recent designs. It's going to suggest things based on your recent activities. All these are basically ways to launch a new design. You can also come up and use this custom size option if you want to type in exactly what dimensions you want for your project. So you can enter something in pixels, inches, millimeters, or centimeters, and this way you can take total control over the size of your design. Of course, a lot of the templates that they have in here, if we go under social media, they're going to give you what the sort of the standards are for that type of content. So for Instagram story, it's giving you that 1090 by 1920 sort of vertical orientation that you're used to getting with a phone screen. So some of these make sense as starting points, but if you have something unique and you know the custom size, just come up and use this custom size option. Again, home screen, mainly for launching designs. But then from the home screen, you also have this left menu over here. So sometimes they're going to show features over here like the Magic Studio they're showing now. Then you're going to have projects, templates, this brand folder, this apps tab, and then you have some recent folders here, which is just going to be unique to you, what folders you may have visited recently, or anything you've starred is going to show up over here. So let's talk about some of these briefly. So under this projects folder here, this option here, this is where you're going to go once you start having Canva designs that you've saved off, and you can start to organize in here with folders. So you have a folders tab, place where you can get into folders, you can go into subfolders, so you can create as many folders as you want in Canva, and this really is a good way to stay organized. And these folders can contain designs, but they can also contain individual assets, and all these things are things you're going to be able to access while you're designing in Canva. So you're going to very quickly be able to get to your assets or your designs that you want to use while you're in the design interface, if you are smart about the way you organize in Canva. So I always encourage you to store off your favorite assets to appropriate folders, store off projects to appropriate folders, just so you can get back to things very quickly. And so under the projects tab, that's where we're going to take care of things like that. So you can see your folders, you can see your designs, any brand templates you have, things like images and videos. You can get to all those quickly underneath this projects tab, but then we're going to be able to access this projects tab from within the design interface, and that's when Canva gets very powerful, because then you can start to have a workflow that saves time. Okay, templates tab, that's basically like on the home screen how we had different content categories, so I'm not going to talk about that too much, but you can go find different launch points for starting a new project. Then you have this brand tab, and underneath this brand tab, you can create brand kits. Now you're limited if you're a free user, but if you're a pro user, I think you can create like 100 or 200 brand kits. And basically think of a brand kit is basically assets that you're going to reuse a lot that are sort of part of your brand. So like your logo, the colors you use, maybe the fonts you use, maybe specific images that you use a lot. So you can store those under your brand kit. Now, if you're a free user, you can also organize with folders, so you still have ways to do these sorts of things. You have workarounds you can use, but if you're a pro user, you have this brand kit option. Let me go back here. Then we have apps. So Canva has all these integrated apps, and basically think of these as ways to add even more functionality to Canva. And so the best way to figure out which one of these might make sense for you is just to come in here and search around a little bit. So they have it organized into categories, so I could come in here under AI powered. And if I wanted to learn more about different apps here, I could come click on one of these, and then you're going to get a little description here. It's going to tell you what that is, give you a chance to use it right here. Or these are all also things you're going to be able to access within your project interface, and we'll show you how to do that in a little while here. But again, you can just search around in here. So if I go under share and publish, for example, then I could see if I scroll down here, okay, if I want to hook this up to MailChimp, if that's a software that I use for my mail campaigns, I could hook it up to MailChimp. Here's one where Pinterest, where I can post designs directly from Canva to my Pinterest boards. So you just have different functionality in here. If you want to access your OneDrive, you want to access Google Drive, you have different ways to hook up and sort of add more functionality on top of the base functionality that exists in Canva. So you can check out this Discover Apps tab. And again, you're also going to be able to get to this Apps tab within the project interface. Okay, so let's just go back to the home screen. So this is the home screen. We've talked about some of the options here in the left menu. But again, the main thing we're going to do here is we're going to use this home screen as just a launch point for starting a new design. Now let's get ready and launch a design here, but before I do, I'll mention this sort of search bar, which I haven't mentioned yet. You can also come in here and you can describe your design. So let's just say I wanted to create a rock poster or a promo poster for a rock concert. So I could type in here, promo poster for rock concert. And if you type in something specific here, it's going to suggest sort of starting points here. So it's just talking about concert poster 18 by 24, but then if we look down here, it's actually giving us specific templates that are on theme with what we searched for. We can see that this has sort of rock concert imagery. We could see even more here. Now, I'm going to say that I don't think this is super important, because I'm going to show you in a minute how you can do the same sort of thing once you already opened and launched your design. So I think the most important thing when launching a design is getting the dimensions right. So if you know something's going to have to be 18 by 24 or 8.5 by 11 on standard lettered paper, you want to get that right. So the most important thing when launching a design is getting the dimensions right. Getting a specific template I don't think is as important, because we can do that from within the project interface, which I'll show you in a minute. Now, the other thing to mention here is that you have a templates tab and then you have a projects tab. So templates, you're looking at all of Canva's templates, possible starting points. If you come under projects, then suddenly you're looking at designs that you've previously created. So you can search up here for a template you want to use, a starting point, but you can also search through your existing designs. Now we can come under this projects tab. So that's what this is referencing, this projects tab. This is just basically where you have all your design projects stored, okay? But so we're going to choose templates, and actually I'll just X out of this. Just for now, I'm going to come in here and I'll just find poster. So actually I will type poster here. So I'll type poster, go ahead and hit enter. And if you hit enter, it's just going to take you to sort of all your search results. So now we have all these different options. I could choose a specific template, but I'm just going to create a blank poster because, again, I'll show you in a second how you can search for specific templates once we have a project open. So go ahead and click create a blank poster, and now we are entering into what I like to call the project interface. Project interface, design interface, however you want to think of it, this is where you're actually going to create your design. Okay, so now we're going to spend some time talking about this project interface. So here we are in the project interface, and so you have this big design window to the right where you actually work on your design. You have sort of a menu along the bottom here. You're going to get a contextual menu up here based on what you may have selected on screen. And then to the left, you have this left menu. This is basically where you're going to add things to your design using these different left menu options. And then as you have a left menu option selected, just to the right of it, you have an additional menu which sort of changes based on what selection you have over here. And by default, when you start a new design, it's going to start on this design tab right here. So starting with this design tab and under the templates part of this tab, this is where you can search for templates. And this is why I said it's not that important from the home screen to find a specific template. You're just really thinking about dimensions, because within here you can search for specific templates. So this is where I said, like, maybe if you're doing a music concert poster. So if I type in something like music concert, then suddenly it's going to give me a whole bunch of results here. So now I can go down and I can scroll through these different options and I can find one that I want to add to my design. And if I have one I want to see in my design, just click on it. And whenever you click on one, it's going to apply it to that page. And then it may again show you some similar ones here. So again, I can apply any of these. And if I'm on a page and I click on one, it's going to overwrite that page with whatever I clicked on. Use the back arrow to get back out to where I just was before. And again, I can scroll through here and then, for example, let's be more specific. So let's just say piano concert. So now we're being even more specific with our search, and now you can see it's even more specific with the results we're getting here. Now again, click on something, you can add it to your design. And let me go back. If you don't want to overwrite what you currently have on a page, you can create a new page. So I'm going to use this add page option here, and then I could go find another template and click on one, and it's going to open up here. Now you also sometimes you will get multi-page templates where you can hover over it and then see the different pages within that particular template, and you can apply all the pages to your design or one of the pages. Since I'm doing poster, usually you're not going to have a multi-page poster, so that's why most of these are just going to be sort of single results, but sometimes you'll see a little number here indicating there's more than one page that's part of that template. And if you click on it, then you can see the different pages and apply whatever you want. Okay, so this is how you use this design tab once you're inside a project if you want to search through templates and find a really good starting point for your project. Now, of course, everything here is still editable. I can come in, I can change this text, I can make it, you know, Greg's concert or whatever. You can type in whatever you want. So all this is still flexible. Just have a great starting point because I found a template that made sense. Okay, so templates make a good starting point, and make sure you know you can use this design tab to search and find the templates you want in your design. Let me just go to a blank page now, and just to show you, the next tab here is the Elements tab, and the Elements tab is pretty much once you have a template or you have a blank project and you want to find more assets to add to it, you're really going to use this Elements tab a lot. Now it's showing recently used here, but if I go back to sort of the base level that you get underneath this Elements, you basically have content in a bunch of different categories all under this Elements. So all of these are considered elements. So shapes, graphics. If we go down here, we have stickers, we have photos, we have video, we have audio, charts, tables, frames, grids. So all these are considered elements that you can add to your design. So graphics, those are usually going to be sort of vector-based, so vector-based graphics that are based on sort of math. So if I see all those, we're going to get things like this. And again, a great way, rather than just searching across a broad category like this, is to type something specific up here. So I did piano before, so let's say we were doing like a piano concert. I could search for piano, and then suddenly I'm going to see all these graphics that are related to piano, photos that's sort of related to piano, or audio, video. So I could go in under any category now. So if I wanted to see, let's say maybe these graphics, I could do see all. I'm seeing all this graphics, and I say, hey, maybe I want this to be part of my design. Again, just click on anything over here. It's going to get added to your design. You can click on it, reposition it as needed. And again, you can go back into other categories. So now I have all the categories listed up here. So maybe I want to see photos that are related to that piano, and then I could boom, click and add one of these to my design. Okay, so this Elements tab is really where you're going to go and find all these additional assets. Design tab, we're looking for a whole sort of design that's put together, maybe in a manner we like in a different specific category, so you have a good starting point. But then when you're actually looking for individual elements that are going to be part of your design, that's where you're going to come under this Elements tab, and then you can do a search, and then you can look through the different categories. Now when you're doing search, let me just do piano for a second one more time. You also can come in here and apply different search filters. So if I go in under this icon right here, suddenly I'm going to have this filter. I could filter by color. Maybe I want it to be orientation, so maybe I'm only looking for sort of vertical images, or maybe I'm looking for only animated assets. So if I went animated here and then I came back here, you're not going to really see anything in the way of photos, but under graphics here, suddenly we have some of these animated piano assets like this. So make sure you use this filter bar also when appropriate. And then if you see a blue number here, it's showing you have one filter applied. You can just come in here, click on that clear all, and then suddenly you've removed that filter. And again, if you want to clear your search, you can just clear here, and now you're back out at the base level here, and you can search again for different elements. So maybe I wanted something like a musical note. So musical note, something like that. And then suddenly again, I'm in here, I can start to add different things to my design. And then go ahead and notice when anything's selected on screen here, suddenly we get a contextual menu up here. Since this is a vector graphic, it's something that allows me to come in and change the color. So I could come up here, change it to white. If I'm clicking on my photo here, suddenly I'm going to see a slightly different menu up here because photos are roster based, and they're going to act a little different in Canva than these sort of vector based graphics. Okay, but all of that under the Elements tab. Actually, just one more thing before we move on. So if I go back under that filter menu, you notice that you can also filter by pro or free, and you'll notice this crown icon. So anytime any elements are pro elements, you're going to see this crown icon. There are also features in Canva. So if I click over here, suddenly if I were to edit this photo and want to use this background remover or some of these other tools here, you see they all have the crown icon. So those are pro features. And again, under the Elements tab, anytime you're searching and you see that crown icon, that is a pro element. So just something to keep in mind. If you're a free user, you're going to see that pro icon for things that are going to be pro elements. So if you were to add a pro element to your design and then go to download it, then suddenly it's going to say, hey, that pro element costs $1, you need to pay this. So just something to keep in mind. And one of the great advantages of pro accounts are not only the extra tools you get, but just you get so many extra, templates, assets that you can use. So just something to consider as you move forward. And you can always do that sort of trial plan if you want to try out the pro features and pro tools. All right, moving on. Let's move down to this text option now. So text option, pretty much the same as Elements. You can come in under here. There's some sort of pre-made text that's going to be formatted in some sort of style already, have some styles already applied to it. But you can also add a heading, a subheading, or a body just by clicking on any of these. And it's going to add a text box over here. And of course, you can come in here and type whatever you want. So, hey, how's it going? So you can type whatever you want in your text box here, and then you have all sorts of text options here. Now my mouse cursor I just used to sort of scroll between pages accidentally, but just know you can click on the different pages down here in your design. And one more thing to mention about this design interface, which I didn't mention here, is right now we're sort of in this thumbnail view here, but you can also switch between the different interfaces using this here, and now suddenly you're going to be able to scroll vertically on your page. If you want to get back to the other view, you can boom, do that right there, and it's going to bring you back to this other view. Okay, so something to keep in mind as well, whatever is going to make the most sense for you depending on the project that you're working on. So that's the text field. Under the brand option here, this is just where you can sort of access your brand kits, your brand colors. So anything you did in that initial menu on the home page where we saw you had that brand option and you had that brand kit you could create. So if you're a pro user, you're going to have more options under this brand where you can get to your different brand kits and easily access that. Of course, if you're a free user, just take advantage of folders and you can do something similar, which we'll talk about in a second. Next, you have the Uploads tab, and this is where you're going to upload any media that you want to use inside of Canva. So it might be images, but it could also be video, it could be audio. And so what you're going to do is just use this Uploads tab here, search for a file you want to upload. So let's say I wanted to upload this picture here. I could open that up, and it's just going to take a moment here. You'll see this progress bar as it uploads into Canva. Now, if you don't move it, you're going to find it always under this Uploads tab, and you can search in here based on the image type, or I should say the content type, so you could see your images, you could see just your videos, you could just see audio clips that you've uploaded here. But what I recommend is that anytime you upload something to Canva, it's a good workflow strategy to move that off into a different folder. So based on how you're going to organize things, so if you have a particular design project you're working on, or maybe it's something that fits under one of your social media categories, you know you're going to use this in your Facebook marketing, then I would automatically move it off. And so what you would do is just select whatever you want to move off, then come down to the folder here, move to folder, and you can search for a whole folder in here by using the search bar or scrolling down here or creating a new folder, and then move that asset off to the folder. If you don't move it, you're going to find it under the Uploads tab, but a good idea is to move it off into a folder. Now, if you do move something off into a folder, then you're always going to be able to get to it within this design view by using this Projects tab. So under this Projects tab, this is where you can get to all your different folders. So if I back out here to the base level, under Projects, you're going to come in here, and under here you can see your designs, you can see everything, you can see folders, or you can see different content categories like images and videos. But usually the way this would work is you would save something off to a folder. So imagine I had something that I wanted to use in this design and I knew I had saved it off to a particular folder. I come under this Projects tab, I come under the Folders tab, I search for the particular folder I'm looking for. So here's a folder called Social Media. I don't know what I have in here, but I could click and see, and then I could see, oh, in this Instagram folder, I have these different images stored. I want to use one in this design. Boom, I click on it, and it adds it immediately to this project, okay? So folders are a great way to stay organized. It's a great way to store your assets. And then anytime within the design workflow, when you're in here working in the design, working on a design project, all you have to do is come under this Projects tab, navigate to the folder where you have those assets stored, and then you can quickly add them to your design. Now I'm gonna just hit Control-Z to undo that because I don't actually want to use that in a design project, but you get the idea. That is how you make use of this Projects tab. Now the next tab here is the Apps tab, and I did skip over this Draw tab. This Draw tab just comes in and lets you draw different things on your screen here. I don't think it's super useful. I don't love this tool, but it's here if you want to check it out. Under this Apps tab, that is what I mentioned on the home screen, the way you can go in and find apps that add functionality beyond the baseline functionality of Canva. So I mentioned things like Google Drive. So if I were to search for Google Drive, there it is, Google Photos, Google Maps, Google Drive. And so suddenly I could click on this one here, learn a little bit more about it. If I want to open this and make use of it, it's something I can start to integrate with Canva and use this particular app, okay? So you're going to find those under this Apps tab. Now, those are the base menu items in this left menu that you're always going to see. Everything below the apps option, at least as of now in Canva, sort of populates based on what you've used recently. So here's this bulk create app, but if I just sort of hover over this and click on it, suddenly I can X this out. So I have things that are showing up here because I've used them recently, but I can get rid of them and sort of clean up my left menu just by using this X icon as I hover over things and getting rid of them. Now, if I come up to apps and all these options above, I do not get those X options to get rid of that because those are sort of permanent items here, part of the interface that you're always going to see, okay? So just understand that about this left menu here and how you can stay organized, but just by cleaning up the things below and just understand how the items above it are always going to be there and understand how these different items work. Okay, we've learned that we can use this Elements tab here to add different types of content to our project, but now let's look at how some of that content is going to behave differently depending on what type it is when we're working within our project. So I'm just going to come in here under my Elements menu. I'll search for something like dog. And then of course we have graphics, photos, videos, audio, but how are these different contents going to work slightly different in Canva? So let's just start by going under this graphics here, and I'll do see all. And even under this graphics option here, you can end up with slightly different content. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to add a picture of this dog here. Maybe I'll add him. Let's try this dog here and this dog here. Actually, this guy, I like this guy better. So we get rid of this one, add this guy here. But so as I go over this, whenever you have anything selected, and you can select something in Canva by just clicking on it, or you can actually left click and hold your mouse down and drag sort of around what you want to select. And if you want to select multiple items, you would drag around multiple items like that, select multiple items. But when you have one thing selected, then you're going to get a contextual menu up here. So this is going to change based on what's selected. So if I select the page itself, we got a different menu up here than if I have this dog selected, okay? But even though all these dogs were graphics here, and I selected them all under elements under their graphics, you'll notice if I select this dog, I'm getting this color palette here. If I select this dog, suddenly I don't get that. And with each of these dogs, it says edit image, but if I select this dog, it selects edit photo. So first you want to understand that when you're adding graphics, they can be slightly different. And this has to do with the creator of this content when it was brought into Canva. Maybe it was an SVG, which is one type of content that may have come in, and that may have come in with the ability to edit colors. So I can come in under this dog here and I can choose one of these colors. So let's see, his ears and his face are this color brown here. So if I come in here and I click on that and I adjust it, let's move it more towards an orange there and come back out here. And now we've changed that color, okay? So you can have graphics like this that come in with the ability to edit colors, and that's a nice feature. But then you have other graphics that come in where they didn't support that feature, so they're not necessarily going to have that option, okay? So don't get confused when you see slightly different options with graphics. Then here's another graphic, but this one says edit photo, and I have this edit photo option, which gives me all these different options. If I come in under this says edit image, and edit image has different options. So again, don't get caught up. That's just how things are brought into Canva. So this one here is actually like a JPEG, like a raster image, and these may be vector graphics with slightly different options, okay? So differences you need to be aware of, but not things to get confused by. Just understand those differences are going to exist. And then with each of these, of course, we have the animate option, we have the position option, and we have these options here. So some of your options in this contextual menu are going to stay the same. Other ones, like the ability to adjust colors, might be slightly different based on the graphic that's selected. So let's get in and let's talk about these a little bit more. So this option here, this is like a scalable vector graphic, and I have the ability to update colors, but you'll notice here I just have these 4 corner points, and so I can click and I can resize, so I can resize him, but there's no way to really come in here and crop directly on this. I could double click, and if I double click, suddenly I enter this crop menu. So again, with this, I just have these corner points, but then if I double click, or if I come up to use this crop, then suddenly I get slightly different handles where I could come in. And now if I drag this in, I'm actually changing what you're going to see in the graphic. And then when I click out of here, it applies the crop, right? If I want to bring my whole dog back, I have to go under crop again, or I can double click and get in here and expand it out. Or I could come over here and, use these options. I want it to be square, I want it to be freeform. I expand it out so I can see this whole dog again, okay? So again, just different options we have. Well, actually I have it stuck on the square. Let's go back to freeform. That's what I want. Let's get it back so we can see the whole graphic, okay? You have other options up here like flip. You can flip a graphic. So you can flip horizontally like that if you want them facing the other direction. So just play around, get to know these different options up here. Now, this is one that's an image. And so this is an image here. I'm going to have the same corner handles, but suddenly you'll notice this one, since this one is a photo, I have slightly different options. So with these options now, suddenly I have these side handles, and I can immediately just crop like that using these side handles. Or once again, I can double click to get into this crop interface, and then I have that same interface we know before, but these side handles are something different because this is slightly different than this is here. Now let me just delete this one here, and let me show you, since that one was actually a photo, if I come back here under dog, but now let's get back under photos here, and let's just bring in a photo of a dog like this one here. Now suddenly, you notice I have the same thing where I have these side handles, and so I could immediately just right here, I could crop in from the different sides and decide I just want this part of my photo to show. And so we have different options because this is a photo, a raster graphic that's made up of pixels These ones are slightly different because these are vector graphics that are usually built on mathematical equations, and usually they have more of an illustrative feel, like we see here. So just know you have these differences here, but based on what's selected, you're going to know what your options are just by looking at this contextual menu up here. So don't get confused, just know you're going to have different options depending on what type of image you're working with. When working with graphics, I would say when they do have this ability to change colors in here, I would say that's going to be one of the features you use the most often, because of course that is really helpful to be able to come in there and make changes to that graphic. So that's a big feature to look for when you're choosing graphics, to see if they have that option or they don't have that option. And then with photos, one of the biggest things is with photos, you can come under this edit photo option and you have all sorts of options under here, which you may use and which can be helpful. So for example, you have a background remover if you're a pro Canva user, and that lets you come in here and automatically attempt to remove the background from that subject. Now, of course, it didn't do the best job with this dog here because he's lying in the grass. It was kind of a complicated background. So let me hit Control Z. Let me just go grab another photo real quick. So I'll just type in something like model here. Let's pull this image on screen real quick of this woman, and we'll delete that dog for now. But so now if I come under Edit Photo, show you that background remover again, just attempts to remove the background from the photo, and then suddenly you have an element you can use on a different background. So that can be a helpful feature. And also under that Edit Photo menu, you have some other options you can check out. But then under this Adjust menu, you can come in and do things like, adjust the brightness of the photo, adjust the contrast. So they have all kinds of sort of image editing tools in here, which I don't use super often, but they can be helpful sometimes. So actually, let me just hit Control Z on my keyboard. Now that's something to undo a command. So Control Z, you also have undo and redo commands up here, but I'll just hit Control Z a couple times to bring that background back to my photo. Actually, it's not bringing it back. So sometimes Control Z, well, there it is. Takes a minute to come back sometimes. So now I have this photo back here. Just wanted to show you under that Edit Photo, when you come under the Adjust menu, your adjustments, you can apply them to the whole image, or you can attempt to apply them to the foreground and the background. So for example, if I took this whole image and I wanted to make this whole image brighter, I could drag up the slider like that. But if I said, hey, I just want to make the background brighter, then I could select just the background. And now when I'm making adjustments here, it's going to attempt to just apply that to the background. So again, it's attempting to isolate the foreground and the background. So just something to be aware of. Okay, so just in general, these are the ways you would work with images in here. And you just want to be aware that graphics and images are going to have different options up in this contextual bar here when you select them. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and open a new page. So I'm just click down here to open a new page. And then let me just point out, if I haven't before, that you do have a couple different interfaces. So right here, we're just seeing where we have different pages and we can go back and forth like this. But if you use this little hide pages option at the bottom, then suddenly when you add a page, you'll do it down here. And then suddenly you're vertically scrolling through your pages, but you can switch back and forth any point in time just by clicking that option down here. And now we're sort of back in this thumbnail view where we can go like this to go through our different pages. So moving on to text now. So text here is under this menu here. And when you click on this, you have options for adding some sort of text that has some preset styling. So if I add this here, it's going to come in with a styling. I can still come in here and make edits. So I could type my name. So I can change the text still, but you're going to have all this styling already pre-applied to it. And of course, with text here, you'll notice the contextual menu up here is totally different than what we were seeing when we were working with images. So let me just resize that so you can resize using those corner points. I'm just going to move that off to the side. And then let's go back here. And you can also, not choose this pre-styled text if you want. You can just sort of come up here, add a heading, a subheading, or body text. And this styling is actually controlled in your brand kit. And you can switch between brand kits if you're a pro user up here, just by coming up here and checking whichever brand kit you want to work with, and then you're in under that brand kit. Now you have less brand kit options if you're a free user, but if you're a pro user, you can set up all your styling in your brand kit for your different brands. Now, to add any of these, you would just click and bring it in. And of course, this again is coming in with whatever styling we have set. And then of course you can still come in here and make adjustments. So if I want to come in here now and I just select this, suddenly I have all these options up here, where I can make changes. So I can come in under this menu, I can change the font. So maybe I'm going to switch to this font. If I want to resize it, I can resize it by using the plus option, minus option up here, coming in here, actually choosing a font size, or what I think is the easiest way is just grabbing the control handles. Now, sometimes you do end up with all this extra space sort of before and after, and maybe that makes it a little harder to work with. A good trick is just double clicking on one of these side anchor points that's in the middle here, and if you double click, then suddenly it's going to condense that up, get rid of that extra space, and now suddenly this is easier to work with. Again, you can just resize up here, but also I think just using this control handles is the easiest way, and then you can just click on something and drag it around. If it gets small enough, it gets a little harder to select, then sometimes you'll see this little icon here. That just means you can click on that icon, just hold down your mouse button, your left mouse button, and then you can move something around that way. Okay, so all these things just take a little bit of practice in here, finding your way around. Now, of course, there are other options here, so let me expand this space a little bit here so we can see. So you do have alignment options right now. It's center align, but you can left align. You can sort of block align. You can right align. So you have different alignment options in here to get to know and play with. Then other basic things here, like you can bold something. You can come in here and change the text color. So let's make it black. You could underline it. You could strike through, all caps. Or caps and lowercase. You have all these different options, and then you have things for, you know, creating bulleted list, a numbered list. In here you can adjust letter spacing, line spacing, so you have a lot of different options up here. And then you see this text is very stylized, so this probably has some text effects applied to it. So if you have text and you go under the effects menu here, then suddenly you have some different text options you can play with, different styling you can apply. And then of course, if you want to clear your styling, you can come in here and hit none. You also have the ability to make curved text. So if you come in here suddenly and maybe I want that text to curve like this, again, you can come in here and clear this by using the none options here, none options, just to get back to that default styling here. So all these things to be aware of. And again, all this you're going to find in the contextual menu up here when you have something selected. So that's working with text inside of Canva. Let's talk about another content option. So you can also work with shapes here in Canva. So if I just come under the Elements tab and then I'm going to look for shapes. Now, of course, I'm not seeing it now because I have something typed in here, but if I just clear that, then suddenly I can see my different content categories. Up top, I can see these shape options here. So I can see you just have these different regular shapes. So let me just add a basic rectangle. Now let me delete that for a second just to show you that you also have keyboard shortcuts. So if I use the R key, it's just automatically going to handle it's just automatically going to add a rectangle to the screen. So if you're using a lot of these in your designs, then that R key is a helpful keyboard shortcut, but you can also come in and find it under shapes. Now, anytime you have a shape, I'm showing you once again, different options up here. Now you'll recognize a lot of these similar to the text options. We still have positioning and some other things up here. And you do actually have some text options, and you might be wondering, why do I have text options with a rectangle? That is because with any shape, you can click in the middle of the shape and add some text. So let's just say I wanted to put hello here in this here, then suddenly I have text in here. And that's why on a shape, you're going to see these text options, because you do have the ability to come in and add text directly onto your shape. You could also do it separately by dragging this over there. But if you want to automatically just really quickly click in sort of a shape like this, you can add text like this. So you're going to see those options in here, but then you're going to have some different options with shapes. So you also have the ability to come in here and use this to add a border. So you have different border styles. You can adjust the weight, and then you can also come in here and adjust the rounding at the corners of your shape. So you have options like this. And then another thing to point out is anytime you have a shape like this, you can actually come directly up here. Like if I wanted this to be a circle or a star or a different shape, I actually don't have to come back under this menu. I could just come right up here under the shape menu, choose any of these shapes, and just automatically adjust it. You notice that my text is staying centered in the middle of the shape. So again, that's just one of the features of shapes. You can add text to your shapes, and you have these options for borders, and then you can automatically go from one shape to the next just very easily using that option here. Of course, the other option is here. You can come in here, of course, change the color. So this is just the basics of working with shapes inside of Canva. Finally, let's talk a little bit about working with audio and video in Canva. Now, video is sort of an in-depth topic, so I won't be able to fully cover it here, but I'm going to give you some really good tips that are going to help you a lot, I think. So let me just delete this page and delete this page so we have a blank page here. And I'll go again back under Elements here. And again, we were just searching for a dog before. I'll just do that again, but we can look at the video options now. So let me just grab one of these videos here. let's pull this 13-second clip. We'll just click on it to bring it in here. And so now we have a video clip that's in our project. Now, there's something very important to know when working with video. So I see this duration option down here. That's crucial when you're working with video. Let me explain why. First, let's show you how you can end up and not have this duration option. So I'm gonna go back to my Canva home screen here, and if I launch a project like a poster where Canva doesn't necessarily think there's going to be animated or video content, it's going to give you a different editor, even though you may not realize that. So let me just come now, give this a second to load. If I go back in under my elements, I'll pull that exact same video, I'll put that in here, and this project, no duration option. Just to show you the one we were just in, I do have the duration option. So that's because this project that we started right here, where we started as a poster, it does not assume we're going to have video, and so I don't get that duration option, which is going to be problematic if I really want to do in-depth editing with this video. Now I can click on this here and I can still have an option to edit the video here. And when I do, I get some options up here and I can click on the scissor icon here and I can see a timeline, but I have a timeline up here. That's going to be a lot harder to work with than if we end up with the new Canva editor. And the new Canva editor, we know we have in this other project because we have the duration option. Well, so I'll talk about that in a minute, but first let me show you how you force Canva to always have this duration. That's just on the home screen. If you know you're going to be working with video, even if you want to do something that's 24 by 18 or 18 by 24, instead of choosing this poster option, come over here and enter those dimensions using this custom size, because when you do that custom size option, it's always going to start a project. And from what I can tell, you're always going to get this duration option. Okay. Now let me show you why duration is so important. Let me go back to this one where we don't have this duration option. I have a 13-second video clip here. Let me go on another page. Let's find another video clip. So once again, I'll just type in let's just type in nature, something different this time. We'll look at those video options and we can say, here's one that's 1 minute and 58 seconds. So I add that, right? So this clip here on this page, if I click on it, I can see that it's 13 seconds. If I click on this next one here and I click on it, I can see it's 1 minute and 57 seconds. Total time, 2 minutes and 10 seconds. If I play this, it's going to start on the page here. It's going to show me this 13-second clip, and then I'll skip ahead a little bit. Eventually, at around the 13-second mark, it's going to switch to the second clip, which is going to play for 1 minute and 57 seconds, okay? But just looking at these, I can't tell that this one is so much shorter than this one, unless I specifically know I have to click on it and I have to look up here, but that's still not as convenient as it could be. Now let's move over to the one where we have this new video editor. Let me do the same thing where I add a new page, and let me add that next clip that we added. So let me clear this here. Let me look for that nature clip. So I'll type in nature once again, and let's go under videos. Here's that 1 minute 58 seconds. Now, let me show you what the duration option does. When I click on this duration option down here, suddenly I get a timeline where scale-wise it makes sense. It's representing this as 13 seconds. It's representing this as 1 minute 57 seconds. So this is much bigger size-wise. Now, over here, I can zoom in on my page. So if I zoom now, it's scaling my page up here. But suddenly now that I have this timeline down here, I can come over here and instead of zooming page, I can click to the timeline. And now I'm zooming on my timeline. So I'm not changing the length of these clips, but I'm changing sort of the relative scale I get down here. It just makes it a little easier to see, or if I want to work in more closely, then I could scale this way. So suddenly I'm in farther away from my timeline, right? So that's just a very helpful feature. But this duration option is what you want to look for, because now what you have is this scrubby playhead where you can scrub through your video very easily using this. And then with video, you have things where the playhead's in a certain position. You can right click, you can split page. It'll split that clip into different regions like that. So you just have a lot of features that where you're going to be able to make edits, where it's going to be a lot easier if you have this duration option, okay? So the biggest thing I'm going to teach you about video in this tutorial is make sure you have this duration option. And a way you can force that is either on the home screen, if you open a project like a video project or something that's like an Instagram reel where it's going to expect you to use animation or video, then it's going to automatically do that for you. But if you're opening something like a poster or some sort of content type where you're like, Canva might not know that I'm going to use animated or video content, then instead come and use this custom size option, and that way you're going to ensure that you get this duration option when you're working with video. Now let me show you with one other video feature that's very, very helpful to know. I'm just going to hit R to add a rectangle on screen, and so right now I have this rectangle, and if I scroll back through my playhead, since I was on this slide when I added the rectangle, it's going to show for the duration of that slide. Let's say I was under this slide and I hit R to add the rectangle. That rectangle is going to show for the entire duration of that slide. Well, what if you don't want it to show for that whole time? It would be awfully nice if we could also see a timeline for a rectangle. If you've worked in advanced video editing software, you know that you can see multiple timelines. So how do we see a timeline for that rectangle? Is there a way to do this? Yes, click on the element for which you want to see a timeline, right click and go to this show timing option. And now suddenly we can adjust where this rectangle is showing up within this slide. Now we'd have to duplicate it if we're working on another clip here since we split it, but anywhere within here we can grab this, and now suddenly the rectangle is not going to show until we scrub through right to that part of the timeline, and then suddenly we're going to see that rectangle. Let's say I had a second rectangle. I'll hit R here on the keyboard, just again somewhere to add another rectangle. Let's make this one a different color just so it's obvious. I have these two rectangles, this blue square, red square. Again, same thing. Since this is selected and I have that show timing option turned on, I'm seeing the timeline for that blue rectangle. Go to the red one, I'm seeing the timeline for the red rectangle. What if I want to see both of them at once? Well, I could shift click to select them both, or I could come under position and under my layers menu to select them both. And now if I use the show timing, I'll see this little group icon, and it has this arrow where boom, suddenly I can click that up, and now I can see both my rectangles, so I could line it up so that as soon as my blue rectangle disappears, then there's my red rectangle. Now if I expand out this rectangle here beyond that, then suddenly I'm going to see them both like this. So again, you have a way to see multiple timelines in here. So when you're working with video in Canva, make sure you have this duration option. Make sure you're aware of how that works. Make sure you have this timeline where you can scrub through, and then be aware you can select elements or multiple elements, right click, use this show timing option so you can see a timeline for that element lined up with a timeline for your main video, okay? So that's working with video inside of Canva. Now audio, I said I was going to mention audio, so let me just mention real quick. So again, if you go under elements, and this time we'll search for audio. So let's just come down here under this audio option. You can click on a track. You're not going to hear it because I'm not recording my sound. Let me pause and record my sound real quick. Okay, so now I'm recording my system audio. So now under the audio section here, if I click on any of these, it'll take a second, but then I'll get a preview of that audio playing. So you can preview tracks this way, and then when you find a track you like, you can just grab that track, bring it right over to your timeline, and again you're going to get a timeline for that audio clip. I brought it in, and by default it wanted to line it up with my playhead, so I can bring my playhead back, I can bring the audio back, and then if you double click in an audio track, you can sort of scroll through and slide what part of the audio is actually playing. And then of course the audio is only going to play to the end of your video that you have in there, so that's why this is being cut off here. But if suddenly I had, more video clips up here, I could play this whole audio track. But that's the audio, and just like everything else, you have a contextual menu, so you have some different audio effects you can look up into here. But that's working with audio and video of Canva. We at least covered the basics and a few very important points that I think are going to help you a lot. Okay, so in this next section, let's just talk about some fundamental skills it's going to be important for you to know in Canva. These are things, if you don't know them, they're just going to lead to headaches. And if you do know them and you know all the correct options, right options, then they're things where you can save a lot of time. So they may seem like small things, but you stack them together, these are going to be the things that make a big difference. Now we started talking about selections a little bit in the past, but let's get into it more here. So you can click on an object and you will select that object. And so then when it's selected, even when you move off of it, that blue bounding box is going to stay around that object. Now when you hover over something, you see that blue bounding box, but you notice it goes away unless you actually click on it. So that's clicking on it with my left mouse button. Now if I wanted to select two of these objects, let's say this dog and this square here, then I could left click with that mouse button, keep the left mouse button held down, drag this blue box that you sort of drag out around multiple objects, and they are both going to be selected. And then if you click outside anywhere on the screen, then suddenly they're unselect. So click on, click off to select, click and drag to select, click off to deselect, okay? So select, deselect. Other way to select would be using this position menu here. So you can come under the position menu, you have this layers menu here. And so then same principle, I can click on something, and if I click on it in the layers menu here, we'll see the blue bounding box, it becomes selected there. Now, something a little different, if I'm just on the screen here and I click on one object and I want to select a second object, I can hold down the shift key and it will select that second object. Anytime I hold down the shift key, I can continue to add to my selection. And we'll see over here in the layers menu that they are selected. Again, click off of it to deselect. Now, this works a little different if you're in the layers menu itself, because then you're going to click on one thing, and then if you hold down the control key, now that would be control key on Windows, command key on Mac, then you would click on a second object to select it. Now it's a little different because you're using the shift key when you're actually out here on the screen, but if you're up here in this menu and you want to use the shift key, then it's actually going to select any object that's between the two layers you just selected. So in other words, if I click on this dog here and I were to control click on this top layer, the text layer, I'm just selecting each of those, and so those two are part of my selection. However, let's come back and do that again. If I click on the dog and now I shift click on this top layer, you'll notice it's also selecting all the layers that were in between the layers on my layer stack here. So it's just a way if you want to select the multiple things and they're all adjacent to each other in this stack, you can do it very quickly by clicking on the bottommost layer that you want to select and then the topmost layer you want to select using that shift key, okay? So these are just different ways to select things and then moving things around. So once you have things selected, whatever is selected, you can just left click with your mouse button and drag things around the screen. So sometimes that works fine. Other times you want to be a little bit more precise. So instead of clicking and dragging, maybe I would have something like a guide on screen here. And so if you have a guide on the screen here and a guide on screen now, suddenly now you have it where things are going to snap to that guide. So that makes it a little easier to position things. Other times when you have an object selected, you can nudge it using your arrow keys. So if you use your arrow keys, you can move something 1 pixel at a time. And then if you shift click with your arrow keys, so holding down shift and then pressing your arrow keys, now you're suddenly nudging things 10 pixels at a time. Now the other way to do absolute positioning would be if you have something selected and then you come under this arrange tab here. So again, you have to be under this position tab. Under the position tab you have layers, but then you also have arrange. So click on something, go under position, and then go to this arrange option here. Then you can actually see the XY coordinates of where it is on the screen. You can also come in here and adjust the width and height of your object. So for example, if I wanted to make my object bigger and I wanted it to have a width of 500 pixels, well, I could type that right in here. Maybe I want to lock the ratio so it stays width and height wise the same, but I could do that right up here. Now, if I want it to appear at a certain part of the screen, I could say I want this to appear right at the 200 pixel mark. So let's say 200, and maybe I want to do that on the X and Y axis. So again, 200, 200, hit enter, and suddenly this is the 200 and 200 point. You'll notice with the rulers here, I can see that exactly this part here is 200. At 200 is positioning that top left corner. Now, with that 200 and 200 number highlighted here, you'll notice now when I use the arrow keys, you'll notice, yes, I'm moving it 1 pixel at a time to the right. And then suddenly at 220, if I start using that shift option, while I use the arrow keys, now we see 230, 240. So yes, that's working. So just know with objects, you can click on them to select them. You can click and drag multiple objects to select them. You can also come in under your layers menu and select them that way. Remember, control click to select different ones here, but if you're out here, you would use the shift button while you're selecting multiple things. Or if you're in here, click one and you want to select all these layers, shift click on the topmost layer and they will all become selected. Then for moving them around, you can just drag them around the screen with your mouse. You can use your arrow keys to nudge them. You can use your shift plus your arrow keys to nudge things 10 pixels at a time in any direction. And then with this arrange menu here, when you have one object selected, you'll be able to see the width and height of that object. You can adjust the ratio in here. You can also easily adjust the XY position to any exact position you want on your screen, okay? So that's selecting and moving elements in Canva. Now we've talked about this arrange menu and how you can use that to position things. in relation to the page and in relation to each other, but we also have this layers menu option, which is super important. So let's just talk about the layers menu for a second. So I'll click out of here, and if you remember before, you're going to bring that menu back up by selecting any object and going to the position menu. So I'll select this rectangle, we're going to go to the position menu, and instead of under arrange this time, let's go to layers, and under layers, of course, this is where we can see all the layers in our project. Now, if I were to click this car and drag this car, I can see that this car layer is underneath the rectangle layer in the stack. So that's controlling what object we see on top of each other. This green rectangle we're going to see on top of the car. Now, if I wanted to switch that up, I could click and drag and place that rectangle behind there. And now I can't see it if I click off it here in my project, but if I have my layers menu open, I can see that yes, there is a rectangle here. If I want to see it again, I can drag it up in the layers menu and put it wherever I want in this layers menu. So this layers menu becomes really important as another way to select objects, but this to control where they appear in the layer stack. Now, there are going to be keyboard shortcuts if you're working on desktop. So if I have this rectangle selected and I right click, then I can see that I have this layer option here. And then I see I have options for sending it backwards or sending it all the way to the back. So this would be one step back in the layer stack, and this would be to the very bottom of the layer stack. So that's Control plus my bracket key, and then Control Alt plus my bracket key here. And if you were a Mac user, that would be Command instead of the Control key. So let's just try this out. So I'm going to click on this, and then I'm going to use Control plus the bracket key, and we'll see it disappear behind here, but we can also watch up here to see how I can move it up and down in the layer stack. So again, I have it selected. I'm going to hold down my Control key and now my left bracket key, and you can see I can move it backwards in the layer stack, and then I can bring it forward in the layer stack. Now, right now, it's not letting me actually move this behind the dog layer. And I have discovered from playing around that this bracket key keyboard shortcut isn't always going to work if the layers aren't overlapping. Of course, overlapping is that important element because that's when you're sometimes going to have one layer obscure the other layer, so it's really going to matter what your layer order is. But so if I move this dog over here now into the stack, and then I do this keyboard shortcut, now suddenly it's allowing me to move it behind the dog, in front of the dog, using my Control left bracket key or my Control plus the right bracket key, since these are overlapping elements. But I could also come in here and use that Control plus the Alt key. Now again on Mac, that would be Command plus the Option key, and we can use that Control Alt key to move things all the way forward or backward in the layer stack. So let's try that again. Control Alt bracket, moving it to the front, moving it to the back. Again, it's only affecting the layers that are overlapping each other. So if I suddenly brought this layers menu back into here now I do my Control Alt bracket key. I should be able to now move it all the way up or all the way down. Let's try it again. Control Alt bracket key to move it forward, to move it down. So these keyboard shortcuts do tend to only work with layers that are overlapping one another. And you can also come in here, and if you want to just see the layers that are overlapping each other, for example, let's move these two out of here, and then I'm going to select on my car, and now if I go up here and change this from all to overlapping, it's only going to show the overlapping layers based on what you have selected, so that just lets you see a little less in this layers menu if you have a lot of layers and it starts to become confusing. So again, you have all these options for positioning your layers, and of course these shortcut keys you're not going to have on a mobile phone, but on a mobile phone you're still going to have this layers menu you can get to. So a great thing to know and a great way to control sort of what appears on top of each other in your project, and also gives you a way to for selecting things if you do end up having sort of hidden layers that get stuck behind another layer. One last thing to mention about this layers menu, which I probably should have mentioned already, is you're always going to have a background layer. So when I hover over this bottommost layer, we see this symbol right here, and it also says background. So the background layer is just the bottommost layer in your project, and it's not something you can move up or down in the layer stack. It's always going to stay as that bottommost layer. So just know that every project is going to have a background layer. You can change the color. You can use an image as a background sometimes. So you're going to have that background layer, and just know that that is locked as the bottommost layer in your project. But again, just get familiar with this layers panel, this layers menu, and again, to get to it, anything selected or the page selected, you're going to have a position icon. Now notice with the page selected, it's in a little bit different up here position, and if we have something like an object selected, sometimes it's out to the right. So it is affected by the contextual menu you see up here based on what element you have selected, but then you're always going to be able to find this position option, and then under here you're going to have this arrange and also this layers option, and the layers option is where you're going to see all the layers in your project. Now, we've talked all about selecting layers and moving layers, but what if there are layers that you always want to select together, you always want them moved together, Well, there is actually a way in Canva you can group layers. So let's just say this dog here, let's say his name is Buford. So I'm going to come in here, let's type out his name because we're always going to want to have his name with him, and we're always going to want to have it sort of move around the screen with him. So maybe I would position that here. He's going to be positioned underneath here. And now I always want this relationship between these two where his name is going to appear above his head. And I might want to move them. I might want to resize them. Now, of course, I could come and select them all like this and move it around. But just if you want to stay organized and you want to keep them grouped together, you'll notice that when you have multiple objects selected like this, suddenly you have this group option here. Now you could right click on them and also get to the group. So you're going to have multiple different ways to get to this grouping command, or you'll notice the keyboard shortcut Control G. That would be Command G on Mac. But we can use any of these options and we can just click group. And now suddenly when we do that, suddenly we see up here in the layers menu that they get condensed together into one layer, and we have this group we have this little icon called group that shows that they're grouped. And what that does is now I can click off those layers, and now when I click back on either part of the text or the dog, now suddenly they are grouped together. And now all I have to do is click once. I have them both selected. I can move them around together. If I resize, I'm going to be resizing them together. So it's just a way to stay organized. It's a way to make sure I maintain this relationship between this text and this image here. And so a lot of times this is going to be a helpful feature and something you want to use. Now, of course, anytime I want to ungroup them, I have to select either element here or just up here, select the group, and then just ungroup. And then suddenly now if I click off and click back on, now suddenly they are individual layers, and we see that they're individual layers up here. I can move them around independently. I can resize them independently. So just know that you have this grouping option in Canva, and I did it with 2 objects there, but you can do this with as many objects as you want. So I could select all these, I could group them together, and again, we see how it becomes condensed down up here. You want to ungroup, just ungroup, and now suddenly you have individual elements again. So that's grouping in Canva, a very helpful feature, so make sure you're aware of that option. A few more little commands and options here that are going to be very helpful to know. The first is the ability to duplicate elements. So I can select any object or element here just by clicking on it, and then if I right click, I have this duplicate option. We also notice we have the keyboard shortcut Control D. So if I click duplicate, suddenly I have an exact copy of that object. And again, they showed you that control option. So if I do Control D, then I'm going to duplicate that. Again, that would be Command D on Mac, Control D on Windows. And another way to do this, which they don't show here, is you actually can click on any object, and then if you hold down the Alt or Option key and then just drag out, you can drag out a copy like that. So all ways to duplicate objects, and sometimes you're going to want to duplicate elements, so that's just a very helpful way to do it. I'm going to delete some of these copies I made here just so we have these base shapes again. And the next thing I'm going to mention is just, we're going to talk a little bit more about aligning elements, positioning elements. I know we talked about this a little bit, but let's just review and go over a couple more options. So if I go over all these objects here, if I select them all, then remember under the position tab here, we have the arrange, and we know under this arrange menu, if one object is selected, then you can arrange things in relation to the page. So I can align it to the top, the left, I can make sure it's in the center. So you have all these different options, the center and then the middle. That would put it in the exact center of my screen here. So we have all these options, but then if we select multiple objects, then suddenly this arrange menu, we're arranging the objects in relation to each other. So let's say I wanted to sort of align the top of all these objects, where I could find this option here for top, and now the tops of my objects are aligned. If I want to sort of space them evenly, then I can use this horizontal spacing option here, and this spacing is going to space them evenly while not moving the outermost 2 objects. So I could go and I could suddenly space them horizontally like this, but let's say I actually wanted this to start here and I wanted this to start on that side of the screen, but now I want to make sure everything's lined up top wise and spaced out sort of horizontally across the page. So let's just select them all again and then come in here under the arrange again, and now we're going to line the top and we're going to get them spaced horizontally. So boom. So you can just fool around, make sure you know and are familiar with all these options under the arrange menu, because that can be very helpful when spacing and positioning things on the page. 2 more content types to be aware of in Canva are grids and frames. Now they're actually very similar, but let's talk about what they are. So I'm going to come under my elements menu here, and I will scroll down until I find this frame options. So I'm going to go ahead and click see all. And when I do, I see all these different frames that you can use within Canva. So we have some basic shapes, we have some other kinds of things like letters and numbers and some interesting effects. So let's just try a couple of these. So I'll grab this basic shape here. Let's come down and grab this flower one. Let's do one more. We'll do one of these retro ones here. And then I can come in and now I can resize any of these with the corner handles. And then you'll notice some of them also have side handles where you can resize this one, or with this flower one, sort of squash down the shape. This one here, I only have the quarter handles, so it's going to be a little different sometimes between frames, but then they all have this image, and basically all this is basically a placeholder. Now I could come in here, and for any of these, I could come in and just use it to add a background color. But basically, usually what you're going to do is you're going to be adding an image into these frames. So if I come under the Elements menu and then I go under Photos, we'll just click See All. Now we'll notice I can grab any of these photos and I can bring that photo and put it in one of my frames, and what it's going to do is it's going to snap within that frame and be contained within the frame. So it's basically a way to hold a photo and show it just in a condensed area of your screen based on the shape of your frame. And of course, once you have something in a frame, just like you can with a photo, you can go in and crop what you're seeing. So I can double click to get into that frame. I can resize, change what actually is showing that frame, reposition it. And I also could have done that by coming in here and going under, I believe I can get into edit photo or something from right here. No, maybe I do have to do that double click to get into my frame. So again, double click lets you to get into that frame. And then once you're in that frame, you can resize something. You can drag it to reposition it. So all these frames work the same way. So I could put a picture down in this one as well. And again, it's working the same way. So frames are a great way when you sort of want a content placeholder. And then if you ever want to change what's in the frame, you can just grab another image. It's going to replace what's in the frame, existing in the frame. And of course, I can right click and also detach the image. Right click, detach, if I just want to see that picture outside of the frame again, or see the frame itself. Okay, so these are frames. Now grids are very similar in that they are going to be content placeholders, but if I come back here under my Elements menu, and this time we go down to grids, well, notice with grids, sometimes you have that single element like we did before, and this is going to basically work exactly like that single frame element, but then suddenly we go in ones here that suddenly have a different number of columns, a different number of rows. So for example, if I was working on a design and I thought my design, I wanted it to be 3 columns, well, one way I could do that is I could bring in a frame a grid that's a 3-column grid, and then suddenly with this, all these individual ones are going to act like frames, but they're all connected together. So now I could come back under my elements here, grab some photos, and put them in these different frames. Now another thing is when you have frames that are part of a grid here joined together, then you also have this spacing option. You can come in and change your grid spacing, and of course as you resize everything, it's just like they're grouped together, right? So sometimes in your design this could be very helpful to have this sort of setup. And again, this could be something where I'm actually just using it as a way to help and control positioning of my design. So instead of pictures, I could actually just come in here and go up and just use that as a way to have background color. So maybe I wanted this light gray column look, and so I could put that color in each of my columns. Let's try that again. Select this one, come in here, change the color, and so you could do something like that and then position it around your design. And then I could bring a text box and put some text over top of this, so you don't always have to put a image in a frame. You could use it just as a way to control and see a certain part of the screen that you want to have certain elements of your design in, okay? But grids and frames are content placeholders. They are a way to organize. They are a way to control what you're seeing on a certain part of the screen. So just be aware of grids and frames inside of Canva. Rulers and guides in Canva just give you even more control over where you're placing items on the screen. Now, I may have mentioned these a little bit before, but let's just cover it again just to make sure you know all the options. So first, rulers in Canva. The easiest way to see rulers in Canva is just the Shift+R keyboard shortcut. So if I tap Shift+R, then suddenly we'll see that I get these rulers on both the sides and the top of my document. If I want to hide them, I can do Shift+R again. So that's Shift+R to show and hide. I could have also gone up here under the file and then under this settings options, and under here we can see show rulers and guides, Shift+R. So I could come through this menu, but the easiest way is just to memorize that Shift+R keyboard shortcut. Now once you have these rulers on the side of your screen, of course it gives you sort of a measurement of where you are in the document when you move your cursor up and down, but you can also just click directly on any of these and drag out a guide. So if I wanted to drag this one out to say, let's say 200 pixels, I could put it right there. And if you need to see a little little bit better, I could come in here and zoom in so I can really see a little bit more precisely and say, oh, I want that to be right at the 200 mark. And then you'll notice that blue number I'm getting on this side, it's telling me exactly the position of my guide. So if I wanted to be exactly at 350 pixels, then I could sort of get in here and wait until I get it right on that point and then release it, and then you're going to have that guide on screen. Now I can drag them out from the top or I can drag them out from the side, depending on whether I want a horizontal or vertical guide. And then of course, once you have them in position, then of course you can snap things right to that. So as you add elements to your screen, let's add a rectangle with that R keyboard shortcut, suddenly it gives you just a way to control where things are positioned on the screen. It gives you that visual guide that can be very helpful. Now let me just go ahead and just get rid of these. So if you want to get rid of guides, I can just drag them off the side and they'll disappear. Or again, you can come under that file settings menu and then you have an option down here for clearing guides. You can also lock guides, and then we have an option for adding guides. Let's look at this add guides. So again, started with rulers, and when you have rulers on screen, you can drag out guides, but then you can also come in here and do this add guides option as well. And when we do this, suddenly we get this sort of custom menu where we can sort of build our layout that we want in our design, and it's going to add guides at that position. So it has a couple default options here where you can do 12 column layout, you can do 3 column, you can do 3 by 3, and sometimes maybe you're using these options. But what usually you're going to do is you're going to come in here and choose this custom option. So when I do this custom option, now suddenly I can control exactly how many columns I want in my layout, exactly how many rows I want in my layout, and do I want spacing, on the outsides, sort of margins? Do I want gaps in between my rows? And so, for example, let's say we were going to take this whole thing here and we were going to have 2 rows, and then maybe we're going to have 3 columns. So I could come in here and say this is going to be a 3 column layout. Now, anytime you do this and you type something, then as soon as you click into another box, it's going to go ahead and apply that change. So I want 3 columns, I want 3 rows. So let's type a 3 here. Again, for that 3 to be applied, click into another box. So let's click into the next box. And then of course we can come in here, and right now there's a little bit of a gap. Let's say you wanted no gap, you could do a 0. And so now we have no margins. We have no gaps in between our rows. We just have this 3 by 3. And if I go ahead and hit add this now you're going to see it actually puts the guides at those different placeholders. And so now suddenly, if I wanted something to fill this entire first section, I have these visual guides that are going to help me do that. Now let's go under that one more time. So file settings, and we could come in here and we could again clear guides. So let's clear everything and let's do it again. File settings. Go ahead and add guides again. So now we have this 3 by 3. It saves our last inputs, but maybe now let's say we want a margin. So if you come in here with a column, and so that would be, do we want margin? So let's say we want a margin of 25 pixels. I could type that in. Well, I typed in 35. Let's try it again. 25. Click into another box. So now suddenly we have this 25 pixel margin on each side of our screen. Now I could make that even bigger if I say that's not enough. Let's do 100. And so now suddenly we have 100. Maybe I want that on the top of the bottom, top and the bottom as well. So I could go and add a 100 pixel margin on the top and the bottom. Now that's sort of on the sides, the top and the bottom, so the top and the bottom and the sides. But if we want stuff to actually appear in between our rows, so imagine you have text that might go all the way to the edge of your row, and then you don't want to have text really on the other side of that row. You want to have a space in between, sort of a gap. So you come in here and let's say, hey, we want a 50 pixel gap in between our rows and columns. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and apply all of this and add guides, and now you'll see that I have these margins on the sides, and then I also have these gaps in between our rows. And so this just gives you a precise way to come in here and build a layout on this grid system, and it's going to let you control things a lot better by having these visual guides. Okay, so be aware of rulers and guides in Canva when you're building a layout. It can be very helpful. It can help you stay organized, and it just can help you give some instant structure to your design. So make sure you know of these features. So up to this point, we've really talked about how to start a design in Canva, but then also make sure we understand this interface, make sure we understand how to work with the different elements in Canva, and then make sure we understand those fundamentals, those fundamental things, all those things that are going to save us headaches and save us times. But the second part of this picture is then going to be, once we're comfortable working in Canva, how do we still develop a smart workflow that continuously saves us time? And so one of the big elements I'm going to talk about now that's part of that is to get really good at templating. So what do I mean by templating? One of the strengths of Canva is it comes with all these starting templates that might make a good launch point for your project. So you can start with a design that's sort of all laid out, and you may have to go in and fill in some of those features, but you're not starting from scratch. So the next part of that is, the chances are those Canva templates aren't going to match up perfectly with what you're going to do on a regular basis as a brand. They might be a good starting point, but you're going to end up making tweaks and changes. And so you want to then take their templates and move them forward so that they become templates that really make sense for you and your content creation. So you start to have starting points that are going to save you time. So let's just work through a simple example. Let's say, I have this pet grooming company, and let's say, I know I do Instagram marketing mainly, and so I want to develop some good Instagram templates. So maybe I opened up this Canva template here. It's a good starting point, but I know there are things I can make better about this. This is something I'm going to use every week. So anytime I can make changes now, and do it once, that's going to save me time every time I use that. So basic example here, let's say I want to come in and add my logo. So I'm under my brand kit here, and under my brand kit, I changed to Greg's Pet Grooming. Let's say I have this brand here, and here's my logo, so I can just add my logo, because I know I always want my logo to be part of my branding. I want that to be part of my design. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in my template, because this only takes a few seconds, right? But that's time I'm going to save every time I do it. That way I don't have to do it every time. Maybe I also don't like the quotes that they have here. That's not my favorite part of this design, so I'm going to get rid of that. Okay, I know that I am going to have text, sort of a statement or story every time here in the center, but I'm going to need a little bit more space, and so I need a slightly smaller font, and I also don't love this font, so why would I make this change every time when I could just make it once and build it into my template? So I'm going to come in here, find text that makes more sense, so maybe I like this League Spartan, but again, that's going to be too big, so let's come in here and try something like 32, then spacing, maybe I think the spacing needs a little bit more in terms of line spacing, so I'll make that a little bit bigger, and now I have this text which can just act as placeholder text. But I've done that work so I don't have to do it every time. Now also, let's say, I'm going to be featuring pets, that I work with, and so maybe I'm going to have a placeholder image up here. So let's go ahead and add a frame to this. So I'll come under elements. Let's just search for frame, and then I'll find this element here, and we'll bring it in here. And then I can just leave this itself in the design, or let's come and say, maybe I want to just have a picture in here just to make it really obvious. So you can leave, a blank placeholder, or you can put a picture in here. So let's just come under elements again. We'll search for dog, and we'll just go ahead and throw a placeholder image in here. So let's just see all in the way of photos. We'll grab this guy, we'll put it in there. And now anytime when I'm using this in the future, I can launch this template. This is already here. This is already here. Maybe I do have brand colors, so maybe I'll come into my template and I'll say, I like this color better. Or maybe I might say, I like this color, but I'm going to spawn some different pages. So let's duplicate this. Let's have another option on the second page where we're using a different color. So you can build some variety into your templates like this. But you're basically trying to save yourself time so that you don't have to redo certain tasks in the future. So now if I open this up in the future, I could just come in here and say, okay, I need a new image. I'm going to put in this image. I'm going to come in here and update my text. And then pretty much I have a graphic ready to go where even if I only save myself a minute or two, what if I do this 10 times a week? How does that time stack up over the year? And then of course you're going to be doing more than just this one project. You're going to have different templates for other projects. So templating in a smart way really can save you time. So the first thing you want to do is just, create that template, think about the changes that are going to save you time, and then how do we save off our templates and have them as reusable assets? So if you are a pro Canva user, then you can come up to the share menu here, and then you're going to search for this brand template option. So if you choose brand template, then it's going to ask you to choose a folder. So you may have like a particular folder you keep your templates in. So I have this Greg's Pet Grooming Templates. So then I could publish this to this folder. And so then what happens when you publish something as a brand template like this, then the next time you want to use it, you can come under your projects menu, you can find that folder, and then when you go to launch this, you're going to be able to use this as a template. So instead of editing the original, you can use this as a template. And so what this does is it preserves the original copy, so you make sure you don't mess up those changes you made, and you can just launch something where it launches a copy. So I can just click use this template, and so suddenly it's going to open this up for me. I notice up here it says copy, it's created a copy, and now I can come in here, edit my text, update my picture, and I'm good to go. Now, if you're a free user, you can basically do the same thing. You just don't have that brand template option. So let me just show you how you would handle that. So first of all, let's just name this something appropriate. So I'll just call this Instagram template. You give it whatever name makes sense to you. Now, if I didn't have this share brand template option, what I could do is just save it off to a particular folder. So I might go file, save to folder, and I'm still going to put it in that same templates folder. So you can use the same strategy where you're organizing by folders. That's always a good idea. So we're going to save that off to a folder. And then let me just go back into my home tab. So let me just come back here to this Canva home screen. And we're going to go back under folders. So same process as before. We're going under projects. We're going to find that folder. So let me just open up the projects tab. We will open up that folder. And so here is the one we just saved off. Now remember, this isn't a template. So if I just click on this, it's actually going to launch the design itself. The advantage of this brand template is that when you click it, it asks you if you want to make a copy. Well, as a free user, you can still make a copy. You just have to remember you want to do that, because you got to remember you want to preserve this original template. Now, if you had some improvements to your template, you could go in here, double click this, open it, and open the template itself and make changes. But then when you want to make a copy, just use these three dots up here and choose make a copy. And so now effectively you've done the same thing. So now if I open up this design here, effectively we've done the same thing where we made a copy of that Instagram template. And so again, now we're coming in, we're making changes. We know we have that original preserved. Okay, so this template strategy of figuring out what types of content you're going to do again and again, and then building out smart templates where you build in things like your brand colors, your brand logos, anything that's going to be helpful, anything's going to save you time, anything that you can do once and not have to do again every time. This is going to be a very helpful part of your workflow, so make sure you adopt this strategy. Now, the second part of this smart workflow approach, which we basically already started to talk about also, is making smart use of folders, okay? So you want to start thinking about the structure that makes sense for your brand. How do you use different templates? How do you store different assets that you're going to reuse again and again? And then start to use folders to organize so you're saving time going forward. So we just saw how you can save designs off to folders. So for example, here I am just in a blank Instagram, but if I wanted to add a page from that template we just created, I could use this projects tab from within the interface. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to find that folder. It's here, but if I didn't find it, I could find it here. Then I can sort of open up that design here, take a look at that, say, I want to add this page, apply it there. But then also in folders, you can store off not just designs, but you can store off different individual elements. So in other words, when you're looking under elements, so let's say we like this graphic here, and that's something we're going to reuse again and again, you can use these three dots and you can save that off to a folder. And so then once you have all those assets to reuse saved off to the folders, again, you're just going to use this projects tab. And so let's go back out of this particular folder, and let's just say we're looking for one of our favorites folder. So I can start to type the name here to help me find the folder I'm looking for. So let's just do favorite and then favorite animated assets. Let's say, hey, I know I have that one image I saved off into here. You can click on it. You can very easily add it to your design, and you just end up saving a ton of time if you use this smart workflow approach by really organizing those assets that you're going to use on a regular basis in your business, okay? So part one is make sure you build out the templates that make sense for the type of content you create, and especially the type of content you create again and again. And then the second part is make sure you organize, make sure you use folders to not only save off your designs, but save off those design assets that you're going to want to reuse again and again. And then once you're creating that content efficiently, you're staying organized, the final part of that becomes sharing your content, of course, making use of your content. And that's where the share menu is going to come into play. So once you've created a graphic here, you can come up to the share menu and you have all sorts of options for how you can share that immediately or download it and stay organized. So we have different categories under here. So we can immediately go to download something, and we have options like MP4 or GIF if it's a video content. Then we have other things like JPEG, PNG, PDF, SVG. So you have all these different contents where you can, all these different formats where you can download your content. And then if we back out of that, you also have lots of different ways where you can share your content. You can immediately share it on social, so you can connect your social accounts on here. You can immediately share to Facebook, immediately share to Instagram. Canva, if you're a pro user, also has a full scheduler where you can schedule out your social media posts for times in the future, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But if we go back under here, we can see there are also print options if you're printing options, and if you use this more option here, you're going to see all the different categories. So you have these different share options. I'm not going to go through all of these, but a couple are mentioned. Brand template, we talked about that before. If you have a template that you might use again and again, you want to be able to preserve that template and then work on a copy. That's where this brand template can be very helpful. If you want to be able to just share a template with other people, then this template link is great, because then they can spawn a copy of your design with the link that you send them. They have to be logged into Canva, but once they are, they can then spawn copies of your design, and they're not editing your original. Your original stays yours. That's not going to get affected, but then they can spawn a copy. So just make sure when you share something like this, it is something you want to allow other people to use and make use of. But if you do, then this is a very good option. Other good options in here too, like you can send designs directly to your phone. So let's say I'm working here. I immediately just want to get it over and have this same design open on my phone. I can just pull out my phone, use the send to phone option, scan the QR code. It's going to open up right in my phone. So then if I want to drop it into Messenger or something that's on my phone, I can do that very easily. So I won't go through all the options, but lots of good options here. Again, you can share to social, and then of course you can download. Now, a lot of times I think this is going to be one of the main things you're doing, because even if you want to use these scheduling options for scheduling something to social, a lot of times I will download first, because I may have a directory structure which I want to make use of outside of Canva, where I'm going to save all these assets. So if I'm downloading sort of square formats like this for Instagram, I may save all those into a particular folder structure, social media post, Instagram post, and then I have all those which I can upload back into Canva and schedule them out, but I'm keeping it organized in a fashion that makes sense for me, because I like to have a copy inside of Canva here, but then sometimes I'm going to be sharing it outside of Canva, and so I also like to maintain that folder structure outside of Canva. Again, a workflow thing, so it's really what makes sense for you, but you have all of these options for staying organized. So I'm going to let you figure out the rest of this. You just got to come in here and play around. And again, there really are lots and lots of options. If you want to be able to share directly to MailChimp, because that's where you do your email marketing, you can do that. There are lots of great options in here, and they're always expanding and having more and more options here to really give people tons of options for how they can share and make use of these final assets that they're creating with Canva. Now, I am going to mention this social media marketing tool one more time, or I should say social media scheduling tool for when you're scheduling your social media marketing. You can click on Instagram, and then you have to connect up an account, and then you can post to that. So all these options, you can connect up your account. Then once you do, you have the scheduling tool where you can come in here and you can schedule directly under the share menu. But a lot of times I will like accessing this from the home menu as well. So let me just show you how you do that. From the Canva home menu, if you go under this apps tab and you look for this content planner option, again, it's got the crown icon because this is a pro feature. This is one of the benefits of being a pro Canva user. Then you can click on this again. You have options for connecting your social accounts, social media accounts. And once you do, you can navigate through this calendar here. I'm in April now, but if I want to look ahead to next month and I say I want to schedule something here for the 24th, I can do this. I can give it a title. I can give it a description. I can point to content that exists within my Canva folders. I can find that. So maybe I'm navigating to my Instagram folder. I'm scheduling things out for Instagram. I'm navigating to my Facebook folder. I'm scheduling things out for Facebook. And then I can see it all on this calendar here. So I can see everything that I have planned out for the month. And then again, this is one more way you can really save time with Canva by scheduling out your social media posts like this. In other words, you can sit down in one day and you can plan out a whole month of marketing. Then you know it's working for you. You've worked in an efficient way. And again, that's what I like to drive home. I really like these efficiency hacks that really allow you to make the most of your time. All right, so that's sharing things from Canva, and that's sort of the final piece of this puzzle. So that's it. Thanks for watching. All the things I talked about in this video can definitely help you save a lot of time in Canva. And if you want to practice them, if you want to really lock in, make sure you look in the video description below and sign up for that Zero to Hero Canva challenge, which is going to help you reinforce all these concepts. So thanks again for watching. If you like this channel and you like Canva tutorials like this, just go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button.